I'm joined now by Bruce Campbell, Portfolio Manager of StoneCastle Investment Management for the weekly StoneCastle Cannabis Week Look Back. Bruce, how are you doing today?
Doing well, yeah. Glad to be back.
You bet. Quite an interesting week in terms of developments, not necessarily representative of a reversal in values for the cannabis sector, but why don't we start with the announcement from Canopy Growth and Drake that they are going to be partnering on a new product with Drake.
Yeah, it was actually a fairly significant one because, it seems like most of these deals that have been done are some type of licensing agreements, but in this case, they actually went into a full partnership. So, in Canopy's case, with a lot of those licensing deals, if they do really well, then, obviously the value of the brand goes up and then they have to renegotiate at a higher price. Well, with this, they're actually partners, and obviously Drake has a pretty big following around the world, and obviously being a Toronto guy, he, the facility that they got from Bedrocan several years ago when they bought it, they're going to use that facility. So it's quite interesting. And I think as time goes by, Health Canada has been pretty restrictive on what they do from a marketing perspective. But I think sooner or later they're going to realize that these companies have to be able to market in some capacity, and this is a good example of that.
Right. Cool. And that's a good lead into the concept of Bruce Linton has made an announcement about joining a new company. What do you know about that?
Yeah, so if you go back to after he got removed from Canopy, he talked about how he had several different projects on the go, and that he was going to sort of be announcing those over time. And the latest is he's announced he's going to be executive chairman for Vireo, which is a U.S. MSO. It's a real medical focused. It was actually started by a doctor, and so he's come out now and just sort of talked about his vision, talked about the fact that there's lots of M&A opportunity here with the fact that the stock prices have sold off as much as they have, and that he's excited to be there. He hasn't provided a whole lot of details. He got he got a bunch of options priced kind of at the market and higher than at a premium to the market. So he's obviously there to work as well.
Right. And Vireo is capitalized sufficiently to actually undertake some M&A at this point?
Well, I don't know about that. From the work that we looked at, they probably have, kind of somewhere between, 9, maybe 12 months on the outset before they would have to probably do a capital raise. So, they would have to probably come up with some sort of creative structure if they were going to do that. But, there's lots of opportunity out there, right?
Sure. Okay. Turning our view now to Ontario. Ontario is making rumblings about rolling out the Farmgate program that they've been talking about for quite a while, as well as the click and collect, where you can buy online and go and pick up at your favorite dispensary or producer. So what's the implications of that? Where do you see that happening?
Well, the big logjam has been, retail in Ontario, and the fact that there's only 24 locations, and this lottery's been held up now in legal proceedings, trying to figure out who's actually going to get a chance to participate and who won't. And so, this was one way that Ontario's looked at changing things. I think it's probably just the start. I think, hopefully they go the route that Saskatchewan did, where they just open things up. But in the meantime, if they don't, obviously this will give an advantage to any of the producers that are in Ontario, because if they had Farmgate, where they can go and sell right from their storefront in one of their production facilities, it's going to give them an advantage over someone who doesn't necessarily have a location in Ontario. And then with the click and collect, that's just a function of hopefully making things more efficient for the consumer. I don't know if they'll have drive-throughs to pick it up, but that could be something that they put in place if you order online and then you can just go and pick it up.
Right. Oh, that's kind of exciting. GW Pharma reported its quarter yesterday, was it? And sales are definitely up and trending higher.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of eyes on this because of the fact that, they went through full FDA trials to get Epidiolex approved, and it has been now for almost a year, and we're just rolling up on a year. And obviously those sales are starting to really ramp up in the US. So, for the 3 quarters to the end of September, they had, they did just a little bit under $190 million, but in the last quarter, they did about 90 million of that. So you can see that the numbers are really starting to ramp up. They're looking at expanding into Europe. So, we've always talked about with our fund, we've always talked about the fact that, beyond recreational, there's also going to be this pharmaceutical aspect, which is not medical, where you're smoking a dried flower, but you're actually using a pharmaceutical grade product. And obviously Epidiolex is, the first of its kind. And GW Pharma is really leading that way. They've got a number of other trials, so it's exciting to see that it's been adopted and been adopted at the fast growing rate that it is.
Sure. GW Pharma is probably the company that I think most investors watch most closely for the beginning of the full rollout of the medical promise of cannabis and cannabinoids. And the one observation that I'm hoping you can give us some color on is that they really haven't been too vocal about additional products at this point, at least outside of their shareholder communications. Is there a significant pipeline of new products coming?
They do, yeah. And in their financial results, they had talked about, in the press release, they had talked about some of the new areas that they want to do research on and some of the new products. And then they've also talked about some of the additional indications that Epidiolex might potentially work for that they would be testing as well. So they do have, a number of different things that are in the works. All those FDA trials take several years to complete. And so it's not something that's going to hit the shelves in, 2020, but these are, probably 2021, 2022 style products. And that's, again, what we expect from the market is that, as legalization happens, you're going to see more and more research done because, that prohibition against research is kind of finished in addition to, the prohibition against legalization.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I noticed that junk food sales were reportedly up 2% in the states where cannabis is legal. Is the implication we're to take away from that cannabis is actually bad for your dietary choices?
Well, certainly that'll be a new concern that people have now is if they get the munchies, what they're going to eat and how healthy that's going to be. So, I have seen companies that are infusing, kind of all kinds of different, snack foods with CBD, but maybe that doesn't even need to be done because they're still going to consume those products just from taking the THC.
Yeah, interestingly, I remember the first time I got high from consuming THC, I was offered a bowl of pea soup, and I had always despised pea soup. But this particular night, pea soup was the most amazing thing I'd ever eaten in my life, and we killed the whole pot. And from that moment, I have always loved pea soup. I don't think that quite qualifies as junk food, though.
Yeah, I've heard stories about people who, in university went to certain sandwich shops late at night and absolutely loved the sandwiches. And then they would go there the next day or a couple of days later during the day when they were completely sober and they realized that it actually wasn't that good.
Yeah. That illusion is part of the effect, I think, of the cannabis. So does that mean that we see that 7-Eleven is rolling out CBD vending machines? Do you think they're going to include munchies, like healthier choices in terms of food with their CBD's options in the vending machines then?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I think the margin that they make on all the junk food's probably bigger, but it is interesting that they're going to have these CBD. They call them actually robots, but they're really vending machines that can dispense a bunch of different CBD products, and then they'll also be able to keep full analytics on what's being sold and collate what that is right away, so that they can figure out what they need to be ordering and what people are going to be wanting.
Yeah, no doubt. It'll be interesting to see what the best sellers are there.
Yeah, especially on the junk food side.
Yeah, exactly. We'll buy shares in that next. What is happening in Mexico?
So this has been sort of work in progress here, but they've just recently announced that they've extended the process to get legalized until April now. So they're saying that there's 6 months in which they want to move to full legalization in Mexico. So that's a fairly big economy, and there's a lot of people there. And obviously, they have a fairly significant history of cannabis. You know, a lot of people point to the fact that prohibition in the U.S. is really related to, Mexican cannabis coming up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. It'll also probably, over time, potentially put pressure on, the whole cannabis chain as far as pricing goes.
Yep, you bet. All right, Bruce, well, that's an awesome update as per usual. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you again next week.
Yeah, sounds good. Have a great weekend.
You too.